Panthers. My name is Laura Tuttle-Le, and I am one of the counselors at the perimeter campuses, and I wanted to talk to you today about building your collection or expanding your collection of self-care strategies and techniques. We're in a really tough time. None of us really know what to expect next. We've got our courses happening, and you guys are figuring out a new schedule, but it's tough. And so as you navigate learning online, sheltering in place, and keeping safe, we wanted to go through some strategies you might use to be sure that you're also taking care of your mental health, your physical health, your spiritual well-being, taking care of your relationships and building community right now. One of the ways that we're going to do that is making an actual collection in some sort of container. So this is the one that I've created today. I picked red for loving myself, a symbol of self-care. So what you're going to need today is some sort of container, maybe a jar or a food container or a box. Really all you need is paper and pencil, and it can be as complex and elaborate or as simple as you'd like it to be. Here are some other materials you might use, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. But I want to say that we want to encourage you to take a little bit of time to think about this when you are calm, so that when you're, it's 2 a.m. and you're struggling to study for your exam, you have some strategies at your tips, so you don't have to be thinking on top of learning, how can I take care of myself? None of us really do our best thinking in crisis, and so if we can plan and think ahead and have everything together in an easy way, then it's easier to remember strategies for taking care of ourselves. Let's get started. And so, as I mentioned, we just need paper and some writing utensils. I happen to have some colored cardstock in my house, but I'm also a big fan of recycled, reusing paper. So here, one way you can do it is I have a glass jar, but you just finish it, wash it out, and we can be putting our strategies inside here. These are also those food storage containers that a lot of us have. What I like about these is that you can decorate on it with Sharpie, just to add a little extra flair. We really like to think about self-care as multiple aspects of yourself, not just one part. And sometimes we're really good at finding the techniques to take care of one element of us. Maybe we're really, really good at nurturing our relationships, but we're not so good at taking care of our emotions. Or maybe we're really great at nurturing our body and our mind, but we really have neglected focusing on our spirit, our spirituality, or our relationships. So I'm going to give you a suggestion for something within each of these dimensions, and what I want to do actually is start with our relationships. That's because this week we really are trying to focus on how do you build community when we're all required to shelter in place and stay at home? You all are a generation that is very adept, for the most part, at communicating online and building those relationships online. We know that you guys are really great at staying in touch digitally. What I want to encourage you to think about is other ways of communicating. Just writing a letter. That is a lost art that doesn't happen too often in our society, and a handwritten card or a handwritten letter showing how much you appreciate somebody can really mean a lot to them if they receive it. It's very different than a text message. As you think about staying in touch with somebody, writing or creating a letter or a card, think about somebody that you're concerned about. Maybe they're not in a safe situation, or think about somebody who's meant a lot to you, and you really want them to know that. Being able to contribute to somebody else and their sense of well-being feels really good for us. So I want to write a note to myself, write or create for someone else. So that's one strategy that you might have for taking care of your relationships right now, particularly when we're alone, in addition to the ways you all are often using video or text to do that. Another way is shelter in place still allows us to be outside some for exercise, or to go to the grocery store or the pharmacy for essential things. So when you're out, even with your mask on, you can smile at someone else to build that connection. Even if you can't see somebody smile behind their mask, you can see it in their eyes. People will be able to know by the way that the muscles around your eyes change that you're smiling at them. We're all going through a hard time. A smile is a good way to build that connection and make that connection. Next, I'd like to move on to ways that you might be able to take care of your spirit in these really challenging times. We are just finishing some major holidays in two of the major religions. Passover just happened, Easter just happened, and we are a few weeks from approaching Ramadan. I know many houses of worship are trying creative ways to stay in touch. So for myself, my reminders are going to be to pray or to attend services online. Many religious institutions are figuring out how to keep us all connected, because religion is about acknowledging our higher power, but it's also about the communal aspect of observing that with other people. It's a challenge right now, but it can be done. So what I'm doing is writing these reminders down for myself, and in a moment I'm going to cut them out and put them either in my food container that I've already decorated, or put them in my jar or my box, and in a little bit I'll show you how to decorate those. Another element of self-care is taking care of our emotions. Some of us are really good at expressing ourselves. Others of us have a hard time noticing what our feelings are until they've gotten the better of us, until we realize, oh, I must be feeling pretty mad because I just slammed the door. So one way to take care of that element is to remind yourself that all of your feelings are valid. You might be in a situation where you're feeling calm and rested. You might be feeling frazzled and more stressed out even than before being in quarantine. There are safe ways that you can express some of the more concerning emotions, like that lashing out that we sometimes do when we're overwhelmed. And maybe for you it's connecting with a friend, either through a face chat or text. Maybe if you're fortunate enough to be sheltering in place with someone else, maybe it's face-to-face. Now this time I am going to use the phrase loved one. For taking care of our emotions, we usually want to be connecting with somebody that we trust. But maybe you have a practice of journaling that you haven't been able to focus on because of all the adjustments that you want to get back to. Or maybe you're somebody who has a breathing practice. And to learn more about that, we have our Mind Body Clinic, and also Ebony Lawson, another one of our counselors, has some guidance. If you follow us on social media, you can learn more about how to use breath to relieve and take care of your emotions. The next aspect of self-care that I want to address is taking care of our body. Exercise is the first thing that many of us think of, but honestly, right now, one of the things that's really lacking, because we don't have the same structure, we don't have the same rhythms and routines, is sleep. Sleep is the number one way to help our bodies stay in control, to help manage our emotions, to help remember what you've been staying up so late to study. Another is exercise. We are able to do it a little outside. You just have to be very careful not to be too close to other people. Some of us don't live in a place where we have sidewalks, and exercising outside isn't an option. But if it is, I really encourage you to be outside, be in nature, even if it's in, a little pocket of your apartment complex or in your backyard. Some of us have exercise equipment at home, but we've lost the motivation, and so trying to get back into touch with exercise if you need to. Another that you can do easily inside is yoga. One other aspect of taking care of your body is your nutrition. Some people are in a situation where they're having a really hard time slowing down long enough to remember to eat, or finding access to food and time to cook. And again, if you follow us on social media, our nutrition services and our Wellness Wednesdays do a really great job of helping you stay on track with nutrition. And let's move on to how we can take care of our mind in these times. And when we are in a situation of uncertainty, but also danger, it feels like the more we learn, the better we'll be able to handle a situation, or the more we'll be able to control it. But it's a little bit of a trick that anxiety can play. Doing nothing but consuming news is actually heightening your fear and making you feel worse. So it's important to stay informed and stay cautious, but it's also important to limit news and limit social media. For myself, I limit social media. I have specific times I look at the news, and I have turned my alerts off after that. So staying informed is a way to take care of your mind. Also challenging yourself, continuing to study and stay on top of your reading, your assignments. If you need a little bit of a mental break from studying, but you still feel like your brain needs some work, I particularly like crossword puzzles. Other people prefer Sudoku. I'm more of a words person. Last to mention is working and volunteering. Some of you have no choice but to work. You are essential. And so some of these strategies that we've talked about in these other areas can help you mitigate some of the anxiety you might feel about potential exposure. For people who are out of work unexpectedly, this might be a time to build your resume if you have the opportunity to do so outside of staying on top of classwork. If you just lost your job, update your resume with the job that you just lost, so that when all of this passes and it's time to apply again, you won't have to worry about that. You know what your tasks were, you know how to describe what you were doing, your resume will be taken care of. Volunteering seems like something that might be out of reach right now because we don't connect with each other, but it might be, like I said, bringing a card or a letter to a neighbor, obviously leaving it outside their doorstep, and so that you don't interact with them. Or maybe you can get items for somebody who's immunocompromised and can't be leaving the house. And to bring it back to what you saw when we first started, here are some quotations that work for me that I'm going to add to my self-care jar. They might be things that you cut out and use to decorate on the outside of your container, whether it's a box or a jar. You could tape to the outside of this. I wouldn't recommend gluing. Or there are things that you can also cut up and add to the inside of your jar. If you choose to create your own wheel like this, to break up the different dimensions, I traced a circle and then I just did my best to divide it. I'm going to cut my quotes out in strips. If you don't have access to scissors while you're sheltering in place, another strategy you can do is folding with a firm crease. Fold one way, go back and refold it, and get your crease very, very firm, and you can tear the paper that way. It's a little more time consuming to tear, but there's something very meditative about the process of folding over and over and carefully tearing. And so if you have the interest in building a meditation practice, you can really focus on that sound. I find it very satisfying. You might want to cut in silly shapes, or maybe you have a younger sibling and they have those scissors that cut in silly shapes. The goal is really to be reminding ourselves of ways to take care of ourselves so that in a time of need, you have the options, you don't have to think about it. Since again, we don't do very great thinking when we're under stress. One more thing I wanted to add, you're welcome to write down the category of self-care that you've made for yourself, if you want, if that gives you kind of that satisfaction of organization, or it might just be something that you put in for later. Now, if you are like me and you want to use your quotations to decorate, once you've got your strips cut out, you can use traditional glue might work okay. A glue gun might work better. I really like a glue called Mod Podge, and I believe Michael's is still doing online delivery. Walmart has it if that part of the store is open, the craft section, but you paint Mod Podge onto the strip and you'll tape it back like this. Another really fun way to decorate a jar, if you're going to use a jar like me, is tissue paper. A lot of us have this lying around. That may be annoying to you, but I really enjoy the crinkle. You might give it a tear, and when you tape it on, it has kind of a translucent quality. I'm going to go about the rest of my time putting my strategies in my self-care jar so that if I become overwhelmed in the near future, I got some help for myself. For now, be well so that you can do well, and stay safe.